Well, welcome back to Blurry Creatures. Today, Luke, we got a deep dive into Astrofest, the Travis Scott concert that we probably got more messages from fans that day. This all went down than any other thing that's kind of happened in the last year. So I thought it'd be interesting to, we talk about the ancient stuff so often, but here it is like manifesting itself in modern day society under the guise of a concert. But we're going to bring on a popular Instagram account, Amy from EyesOnTheRight, and she constantly posts and researches occult topics and things that are very blurry. And that's become its own sort of descriptive word.
Yes, very blurry.
People just send us things on our members' chats now. This is very blurry.
Yeah, people write on my Instagram, that kind of stuff. I'm like, this doesn't even apply to this, but okay.
Your DM's getting blurry?
Nope.
No Bigfoot photos being sent to you?
No. I think they could send to you.
Send us a message, blurrycreaturespodcast@gmail.com. If you want to become a member, head over to blurrycreatures.com/members. Support the show. Help Luke and I make more content. Every show takes, 7 to 10 hours to produce, so it's a lot of work, and we love it.
The history of our Earth is so different from what we can imagine.
Enjoy the journey.
The Smithsonian, that if they found out about a large skeleton somewhere, was to go get it.
I'm going to assume at least one person is right, because if one person's right, it busts the paradigm.
It all goes back to the fallen cherub. And the problem with the modern day church, they have a very truncated view of the supernatural.
This backdrop that's just pregnant with all kinds of meaning associated with this Mount Hermon event.
Welcome to Blurry Creatures.
And this guy defects from the kingdom. That's a big deal.
All right, so welcome to the show, Amy from EyesOnTheRight. Thank you for coming on the show. We've connected over Instagram, and we've been sharing some stuff, and I just want to say thank you for all the work you do on Instagram. There's a lot of accounts where people share stuff to us, and they're like, you got to follow these people. They're truth seekers. They're trying to get the information out there. We're happy to have you on the show today. Our first question we ask everyone, as you know, is what are your thoughts on Bigfoot? We got to go there before we get into today's topic, which we're going to try to talk about Astrofest and some of the weird things surrounding that day. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I'm big fans of you guys, so this is an exciting thing for me. Yeah, I'm totally into Bigfoot.
Really?
I am. It's funny because when I first met my husband, he was totally into Bigfoot. This was like 7 years ago, and I was like, no. And now, right? And now fast forward, I'm like, totally everything you said. I'm so into it. Yeah.
Really?
Love that.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. So what do you think it is? What do you think Bigfoot is?
I just think it's probably some sort of hybrid creature. There's obviously validity to it because of, so many people have seen sightings and stuff like that. But who knows with all those underground dumps and things that they're doing? I'm kind of torn between, is it something from, ancient times, or is it something created in a, splicing together an animal and a human in a lab, So I'm kind of on the fence about that, but I definitely think that it's real, that there's something to it.
Yeah. I mean, we've dug up some news articles and make it sound like the phenomenon's been going back a while. So it sounds like Bigfoot, from my understanding, it sounds like Bigfoot is a little bit old, like an older creature. It might. Some of the stuff we do talk about, like Doug was talking about, some of the Doug Riggs was the modern day chimeras that they're making do sound rather strange and creepy.
Right.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That you're right in our wheelhouse. So, I mean, I guess, Amy, tell us a little about yourself. How did you get into truth seeking and building your channels, and a little bit about you, and then we can kind of get into the weirdness of Astrofest.
I don't know. I kind of just stumbled upon it. I guess I've been a researcher at heart my whole life and didn't really realize it. And then God just kind of presented some things to me about 5 years ago. And I kind of just started stumbling down these rabbit holes. And I started an Instagram page. My daughter was like, you need to start an Instagram page. Just go anonymous. So I did. It went well. And then I'm on my 4th page now because they keep censoring me and taking me down. So I just, I don't know. I love it. I love all things blurry, and I love all things creatures, and I love all rabbit holes. And so I'm just kind of just seeking and looking and using the Bible as my roadmap, and my lens. So
that's awesome.
That helps me discern. Yeah.
We were just joking before this that blurry has become its own adjective.
Right.
Like members are always like, check this out, guys. It's very blurry. And we're always laughing. They're like, all right, what do we start, Luke? What do we start?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't, a little bit about me. I played a lot of festivals. Was lucky to play Summerfest, and we did play Lollapalooza once, and we did Warped Tour. So I know the festival circuit pretty well.
Yeah.
And the music scene really well. So when people were sending us links to this Astrofest, I kind of had some memories of just festivals are kind of a cluster in general.
Yeah.
But whatever was happening that day felt heavy and dark, just connected to a lot of the subjects we've talked about on the show. And there's a lot of symbolism. And I know that's something that you're really into, which is in our wheelhouse too, because we talk about ancient construction and the symbolism there and all the things that associate with how the creatures kind of made these things and where they went and how it all lines up. But I just felt like it would be a great episode to kind of dive into some of the stuff that happens in modern day time. So
sure.
What do you think went on that day, and what made it different than just an average festival of like too many people, too many tickets sold or whatever? Like something else was going on. It wasn't just like mismanagement or of the event itself. It felt like something dark was happening right before our eyes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and just to kind of preface before I go into it is, and you guys will relate to this, like symbolism is really the language that permeates everything. It permeates history. It permeates every culture. So if you know the symbolism, you can communicate to people, old, young, all around the world, just by using these symbols. And so that's kind of what intrigues me about it, because it's this ancient way of communicating that these modern day artists are using, because they're all using this Egyptian mystery religions to facilitate this dark magic, really is what it is. And so, that's what kind of relates it all. And when we look at Astroworld, I mean, it was just a mess to begin with. You see the symbolism in all of his flyers that went out. That was kind of a starter. And then just how it went down. I mean, the people that came into the festival went through this like portal mouth. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it was this big mouth, right? And so they were all running, and it just looked like a free-for-all. Like if you look at any of the videos, they're just piling through this mouth and just stumbling in, like pushing each other over. It was just mayhem to begin with, which is kind of interesting because, they say that there's all this security getting people in, but anybody could have been running in at that. So that was interesting.
There was some things that people sent us that they would look like there was an ancient drawing of the mouth of Moloch, and people were going through.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about, like, people say the giants were eating people, and there's this symbolism of, is it all connected? I don't know. We get so many links to stuff. It's hard to know. It gets wild. I don't know how to filter through it all sometimes. But yeah, the symbolism started from you're walking through the mouth into the festival itself. And which was the mouth of Travis Scott, right? It was a big blow up with him. Yeah. So,
I saw a lot of the videos too. I get sent a lot of stuff, and I try to sift through it. But I also saw that it was kind of mocking like Christ going down to hell and coming back up. I saw it was a painting. And it was really interesting because as you look at this mouth, you start to see the stage was also had this kind of portal looking symbolism there. And it had that mountain. And then on Travis Scott's actual shirt, it had these like little demons jumping through this kind of portal.
Yeah.
And so, and it's like, see you on the other side. So you start to piece all these puzzle pieces together, and you're like, there's more to this. There's more to this,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
He also, I mean, there's some weird stuff. Like he also represented himself on like his album cover as a demon. In the ads, his hands have eyes on them, like the sort of like the Egyptian or the all-seeing eye kind of symbolism, which is, I think he said something interesting that we've touched on a little bit, I think, with some of our guests in ancient history, is just the idea that symbols are the language of the occult as well. Like you have this, you know, you can see it from like Katy Perry to Jay-Z to even this Travis Scott stuff. There's this really weird, whether it be Masonic, which is also, you know, pulls from the Egyptian, but you have this really occultish symbolism that it's just supposed to be like, hey, this is just, you know, it's just fun. This is like a fun thing we're doing, or we're just, you know, we're taking old things and using them for fun. It doesn't mean anything. It's kind of like the vibe people they want to put off, and yet it has all this really bizarro stuff that is attached to it. I mean, even like the idea of this portal inside of a mountain, like that they have some of this symbolism Travis Scott had as well, which, of course, one of our last episodes we talked to Dr. Judd about Mount Hermon, Nate, and the significance of mountains in not only the biblical narrative but history, as far as what would happen in the high places, whether it be
portals,
evil or bad, or evil or good, or even portals, right? And a bunch of weird stuff that happens on mountains. So, I mean, I just think this is way too much weird stuff.
Yeah.
Why are they sort of slaves to their symbolism? It's like they're always leaving their calling card. Why do you think that is?
I know that's such a good question. And it is like there's so many points I want to touch on that you both said, but
sorry.
There's nothing new under the sun, you know, and we call it new age and we call it, oh, it's new, but it's really not new. And if you think back to the Watchers and you think back to these fallen ones who brought down this ancient knowledge, it's really nothing new under the sun. It's just been passed down. And these so-called elite people or celebrities or what have you are just tapping into this old ancient knowledge that we were really never supposed to know about, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we weren't supposed to have that as humans. And they're gaining some sort of power. They're gaining some sort of fame and something that is happening through this ancient symbolism and rituals, and there's something to it.
Do you think that they're all baptized into it, like they know what they're doing, or do you think that they're just trying to play cool, they're trying to or do you think there's a ceremony they get initiated in and the people on the top of the entertainment business have been through?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely an order to it, because you can kind of see it. Like if you I track this stuff and been doing this for a while now, you start to kind of see the similar signs. I don't think it's a right away thing. I think it's a gradual thing. I think it's kind of a testing time as well. If you think of Freemasonry and moving up in the ranks, there are certain things you have to do to get to the top. Can they trust you? I think it's multifaceted in that context, but I think he knew what he was doing.
But I saw something, and this is maybe a few weeks ago, but I think every once in a while the quiet part gets said out loud and it pops out. And I saw a live from one of the guys from the Island Boys. I don't know if you're familiar with this video at all, where he talked about how he actually did a deal. He did a deal with the devil, essentially, and he regretted it because bad stuff started happening, but he was promised money and fame. And it wasn't like it didn't feel spoofy. Like he didn't feel like he was even smart enough, honestly. I say it sounds bad, but even smart enough to really make that up. Like, yeah. And you're like, man, that dude just said the quiet part out loud, and that's. But then you look and you see all this, and then we can rabbit trail on a million things. But you look at the stuff with like the spirit cooking and Lady Gaga and all this stuff that we know happens, and they try to just brush off and say, oh, conspiracy theorists will say it's this and this and that, and it's nothing. It's just cosplay or whatever it might be.
Right.
But did you see that video? Because those things all seem to connect. Like it's like
yeah. It's she probably gets like 50 links to those
I'm sure,
videos.
But I saw that and I was kind of like, wow, you're not supposed to say this, apparently, from what I understand.
Right. And no, I mean, you're spot on. That's like such a good kind of segue because it's pertinent to what we're talking about as well. I mean, it is, you look at that guy, he looks a little crazy,
right? But
then what he starts to say just is another clue to the puzzle. Like I liken it to like a detective, you get all these pieces, circumstantial evidence, but when you put them all together, it's kind of unbreakable. The fact that it has some weight to it, to some validity to it, because you can't deny it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not the first one that said things like that. Many, many have that, you sell your soul. And I think they show us, but so many people, I don't think, want to believe that kind of evil exists.
Right. Or they write it off as like, this is just rock and roll. Like, like you said, it's this thing you do. Like you have these death motifs and you pretend that you're like, well, maybe not here, because man, like when we talk about, and this goes back and to some discussions we've had, Nate, where the temptation of Christ, and you realize what is the promise of the enemy? The promise of the enemy is like, I'll give you the kingdom of the world. If you bow down and worship me, I'll give you all this stuff, and because it belonged to him, right?
You'll be a god, like
Right.
yeah,
right. It's the worship thing, like you. It comes back to the very beginning of the fall. Like what was the rebellion in heaven about? It was that these beings desired to be worshipped as God was.
I think you're onto something, Luke, in the sense that like. So I noticed that he was like prayers for the families. He says that after, one of his tweets after people died, right? Do you think they're actively praying to the twisted gospel, the twisted version? Because that's what we talk about a lot on our show, is that there are two gospels at war with each other. There isn't this, it isn't Christianity versus agnosticism or atheism. It's the alternate Christianity. It's the twisted version.
Right.
And do you think they're actively participating, sacrificing, like they knew that people were going to die at this event and they were offering their own fans to the gods, so to speak, to their effed up religion, their effed up version?
I do.
Wow.
I think they full well knew what they were doing. I mean, you look at his face. There's this one clip, someone obviously is at the show and they're videoing him and he's like in this altered state. You can see it. And you can clearly hear people saying, help us, help me, help us. And you see someone come up to the cameraman and they're just like blowing him off. And you see Travis just kind of zoned out, staring what looks like at the people and just like, I don't know, and it is this kind of, their prayers is just, I think it's deceptiveness. It's them saying the things they think they need to say when full well knowing that they know what they're doing. There's power in the blood, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, walk us through a little bit of what happened here, like through the astro, because there is this portal imagery, and then 8 people died, and the things I've seen, I hadn't looked into this a whole lot. It talks about being a blood sacrifice, and then there's 8 pillars of fire, and 8 people died, and there's this all this weird, really weird stuff where.
And the rising phoenix that came out.
Yeah. From the fire.
So give us a rundown here how this.
Okay. So basically, all of the people rush in. We talked about them going through the mouth, which was kind of reminiscent of this kind of portal to hell. All these things playing into it. The frequency was a big one too. The frequency people were saying was it was just almost like this, like pulsating, in which you guys can probably relate to when you go to a concert or, if you're at a festival, there is an energy to it. And I think that's huge playing into this. So you've got that vibe. And then you just have the big mountain stage with the portal, and it says, see you on the other side. The music starts, it starts pulsating, and you see this rising phoenix coming up out of the ashes. And, in the occult, you guys are probably familiar with, but that's like the Antichrist rising. That's rebirth. That's, dying and coming back. And we can kind of, you don't have to study the occult to understand what that probably means. Mm-hmm. And so you've got all this imagery, you've got the pulsating vibrations going on, and the crowd just sandwiched together. I mean, the testimonies of the people there were like, you could not move an inch forward even if you tried. It was packed wall-to-wall people. And so, a lot of them probably had the jab too. And, there's some theories about how that plays into the frequency stuff. But so Travis comes out, and his whole thing at his concerts are perpetuating his fans to rage, to kind of just go crazy. That's kind of his thing. And so people started to rage, and it just started to get out of control. And the testimonies that I heard were people were just getting pretty much smothered. They couldn't breathe. And, some fell down, got trampled. People were trying to yell for help, and nobody would listen to them. People got on stage and started yelling at the cameraman, like I said, and nobody listened. And then you have Travis standing there seemingly looking at the crowd and just unresponsive. Mm-hmm. So they finally stopped the show. And I think they said about that, what the news said was about 8 people, but from people that messaged me on my account, I even heard people say hundreds of people were on the ground.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you think about, we've talked to Derek from Megalithic Marvels a lot, and we've kind of talked about these ancient pyramid structures, right? And that they did child sacrifice, and this sacrifice was what allowed the entities to kind of possess the idols or themselves. I guess the question is, did they knowingly set this event up with the symbolism and everything to sacrifice people to have some sort of possession happen of him or people in the crowd?
Yeah.
When I grew up in the music scene, like there was, the hair metal of the 80s and all that stuff. And there was,
which is awesome, by the way.
Right.
But it seems like it's getting they're turning up the dial. It's getting more and more overt.
Totally.
When I saw it, I felt like you could just put a pyramid right there. And if we just pulled away the curtain, it would just look like an ancient sacrifice, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think, Luke, you touched on it perfectly, is the fact that there is significance in the mountain. There is significance. And these people take from the biblical narrative because Satan always, he cannot create. So he mimics, he copies.
Counterfeits.
Counterfeit. Yeah. Exactly. And so here you have all this ancient stuff. There's nothing new under the sun. Just like you said, Nate, you pull it back and there's your ritual. And we're just so programmed and so numb to it now because of movies and media and all sorts of stuff that we don't even realize the enormity of the supernatural and the spiritual side of this spiritual side, that it is. I mean, that's simply stated what it was. And I don't know if you guys saw any of the videos of the black entities that they saw at the concert either.
No.
Oh, that was crazy.
So they were actually, they literally opened up portals, which makes sense. You have a human sacrifice. That's a lot of the point.
Yeah. So there was a point where Travis was up on that platform and he was standing there, and it's from somebody's cell phone at the concert, you can tell. And you see this kind of whoosh, like black shape come out of him. And then there's another vantage point where someone is standing back in the crowd and you see this black shape, almost like they're kind of crowd surfing, but it's not, you can tell it's not a person. It's like a black shape that moves quickly in the crowd. Wow. And then there's another one where they're actually, a black figure is walking on top of that mountain, and it looks pretty, it doesn't look human. Doesn't. And I mean, it is, that's, the veil seems to be getting thinner. Yeah. And if they're doing this simply to summon these type of entities for power and riches and whatever, then it would only be natural to see those kinds of things.
It'd kind of be terrifying. I mean, think about it. You're a young kid. You're trapped in this event. You got fire, flames, a mountain. You got this crazy frequency. You're getting smashed to death. What a terrible experience. And I've been to a lot of festivals and I've seen it. They can get out of hand. Events where people are getting smashed and they're falling over the security's trying to drag people out and get them to the other side. And I've seen people pass out. And concerts are like that, but. I mean, I watched a couple of videos where people were getting on their TikTok or whatever, and they were like, I've never experienced anything like this. It felt like someone just injected hell into the crowd. All of a sudden, everyone just felt it. And we do talk about frequencies a lot on the show.
I also say, Nate, that made me think of when we're talking to Dr. Laura Sanger, about the war of frequencies and these low end frequencies that affect and some kind of power, like the power of sound on people. Do you think this was an attempt to open a portal per se, or do you think this was like an allegiance sort of ritual where he was purposely? I mean, obviously it was for the exaltation of the darkness at the very least. But what do you think this from a Travis Scott sort of perspective?
Like a gang initiation?
I mean, I don't know. Like, is he showing his allegiance? Is this to the darkness and to this elitist cabal, or is this I don't know. That's maybe what I'm asking. It's not that's kind of like an open-ended weird question. It's a question I didn't finish.
No, it's not. I know what you're saying. No, I actually think it was an allegiance type of thing. Having tracked this kind of stuff, because it's kind of my thing. Like, you look at there's been several. Kanye West is another one who's really been doing some odd ritual type symbolic things in his concerts. And there's a common link with the Kardashians, and I know, that people just think they're just kind of this reality show people, but it's my thought that they're a little bit more than that in this kind of realm, if you will. Like, I think that they have And I think that it is. I think it was. It probably was a little bit of both, an allegiance thing, a ranking up, a ritual, but it also served a darker purpose as well. And I think that's how they roll. I think that's how they do these things. It sounds conspiratorial, but it's really not. Yeah.
From my understanding, after a couple years of doing this show, that the days of Noah with realms interacting. Do you think they're slowly heating up the water? The realms are going to interact soon, but they can't just come out of nowhere. They can't just pop out of the walls and be like, we're here.
Yeah.
Do you think this is sort of, they're testing the waters, they're getting more, they're pushing the envelope a little bit further every time, and people are going to start slowly seeing the interacting of the realms again, like the days of Noah, when you had entities interacting with humanity? Do you think that's, or is this just a straight up just a ritual event, or is it all of them? Are they doing all these things? I don't know. Yeah,
no, I mean, I see where you're going with that. It's like, I mean, if you're going to look at it with a biblical lens, though, we know what it's going to be like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to answer that, I would say absolutely. It's their whole game is a predictive programming type of thing. There's this kind of underlying occult law that is show them in plain sight. I don't know how you would describe it, but it's almost we have to show them kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so we call it predictive programming because they put it in movies, and then we kind of just get numb to it because we've seen it our whole lives, like aliens and all of that. But I think it is this just slowly progression of showing us what's going to happen to get people ready. And when it happens, they're just going to open arm it and be like, here it is. And the darkness is just getting darker, and people are still participating in it.
It reminds me of the 80s, when he takes a little bit of the iocane powder and then he develops an immunity to it, right, Luke?
Dude, anytime you get a Princess Bride and reference in there, I'm in. I'm totally in.
Let's go. But you and that's kind of what they're doing. They're just,
you keep using that word, Nate. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Inconceivable. How could you use that on our show?
Because here's the thing that gets me every time. I want to know if there's events that you've seen sort of tracking before this, one, and then two, like as a comment, I find it just crazy and fascinating that these type of things happen, and then it's just like 30-second attention span, and it's on to the next thing.
I wanted to touch on something kind of leading into that, to answering that. There's another part of this that I think we've just kind of been numb to. So many of us have woken up to kind of the mind control aspect of what they've been doing to us for so long. But even at the Astroworld, there was not only the vibration and the frequency that was pulsating, but it's also the lights. These lights flashing in your eyes. There's a hypnotic state that you can go into, rested state almost. You're more programmable. And I think that plays into a lot of these concerts, And so whatever they then want to show you when you're in that state, you will accept it easier. And so I think that plays a lot into that.
Is that the same kind of effect we have with television? Like when you get the flashes, like
yes.
It kind of sedates you into this spongy.
Right. It's like your subconscious is getting programmed because you're not awake and aware and engaged.
Right. And then all you can do is just quote Point Break for like the next 12 years of your life, Nate.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. Yeah, I know. For me, it was Nacho Libre.
Yeah, Nacho Libre. Yeah, for you. That's just it hits. Those all hit differently, right? So.
Hey. So
So I mean, where do you draw the line though? How do you know? I mean, obviously, not everybody is.
No.
And like Dr. Michael Heiser says, it just takes one to break the paradigm, and I think that so many people are either or, like it's always happening or it's never happening, but obviously, it seems like there's so many clues that there's a good portion of people in media and controlling. I mean, just going through the music industry myself, I mean, it's very much a controlled thing, and if you have any hints of Christian, you just didn't get the attention or invites and press. You wouldn't get press.
Right.
They wouldn't put your band on certain things. It almost felt like there was a club. Mm-hmm. If you didn't do the right and say the right things, you weren't in. You didn't get in.
Did you have the same problem when you had the Renomes? Dude, Amy, you gotta, Nate had this band before the band he toured on, where they dressed up as gnomes, and they called themselves the Renomes, like the Ramones, and they just played punk covers. And I really think Nate missed out on his true. That was the money ticket right there, buddy.
Oh my gosh, that's so.
I told him that the other day. I was like, "You're never gonna guess."
It's like my favorite story.
I'm like, "You're never gonna guess, man." I was in a band about gnomes.
That is funny.
We played like 5 shows. Okay, 5 shows in college and backyards at parties and stuff.
Oh, dude, I love this so hard though.
That is funny. I love that.
Sorry, we kind of rouse each other a little bit here on the show, but
no, I think that's what makes the show.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that I'm going to start bringing up more often. That one's going to start appearing in a few more episodes. We're going to talk about the Renomes.
I'm telling you, the music industry is a club. It is a club. I think I liked what you were saying earlier about how they kind of test you to see your loyalty. Yeah. So it's like an initiation. Like, what will they do next? What will they do next? And I wonder if this event was like, okay, you've gotten this far, and now you have to do this event. And maybe they don't even want to do it. Maybe he didn't even want to do it, but he had to.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's part of it too. I mean, I think it's, like I said, multifaceted. I think that some are blackmailed, some are, they feel like they have no choice. Some are just so in love with the fame and the fortune and the riches that they're like, right, I don't want to give this up. And some just feel like there's no way out. And so I don't think it's like a black or white thing. I think that there's kind of some blurry lines there.
Oh,
there you go.
There's our word again.
There we are. Well, you brought it up though, like, and I wonder. It makes me ask another question. You brought up Kanye,
yeah, and
we know Kanye dropped like a whole Christian record, and then so he appeared. Do you not get out? Like, did he get out, or is he still? I mean, because then we talk about some of the weird stuff he's doing. Like, we posted a picture on one of our sites, Nate, where he was doing a prayer with like Marilyn Manson and something else, and you're like, dude, great if he's preaching the gospel to Marilyn Manson, but this is weird.
That was weird, man. All in white, and then he had like a white face mask on.
Just wonder, like,
yeah,
because it seemed like, man, like, yeah, it seemed like he just like he sold out for Jesus. It seemed. And I just wonder, like, is this like a blood in, blood out? Like, you don't get out once you
don't get out. Yeah. I don't think you do. I think the Bible, again, let's bring it back with that lens. The word tells us if you are friends with the world, you have enmity with God. Like, there are so many verses that talk about being hated for his name and being persecuted. Like, you're not going to be loved and famous and making multi-million billion dollars. And so I always tell people, like, test every spirit, test these people. Is he really a Christ follower? Is he really? He uses that name. I feel like it's mocking. I mean, if you guys saw Kanye at Joel Osteen's church, he had this whole thing where him and his family walked on water, and it was just like total mockery of Christ. And
It makes you feel like you see all these other events with the Catholic Church, and they're kind of uniting all these religions together, and it feels like the darkness is kind of putting their arms around everyone and pulling it together. That's how it feels right now. And I feel the exact opposite is going on, where Christians are emailing us like crazy. Like, I grew up in the church, and my faith is completely transformed. Luke and I often talk about it. Like, I feel like God is calling his people back and presenting these truths. And it feels like both teams are just getting ready for some sort of conflict. I don't know. That's how it feels. I don't know how to describe it other than I'm a big picture person, and that's kind of what I see going on. But
I love that. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, it's both sides are fully ripening to their fullness, right? And so and it's always been about this kind of competing sides of God versus Satan, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so as you see the evil rise up, you also see God's chosen people, those who are seeking him, waking up. And I mean, when I first started my page, I had people messaging me, telling me I was crazy. And and I'm like, okay, but I'm just going to keep doing it because I know what God's told me to do. And fast forward, 3 years later, most of my messages are about, oh my gosh, I'm awake now. I'm coming back to the word. Mm-hmm. God pulled me out of this. Thank you. Like those kind of messages. And so I resonate with that, like what you're saying, Nate, because it's true.
Yeah.
Both sides.
Test the spirits, and the truth is, it's powerful. It's a sword. It's going to sting you in a good way, or cause people to run. It makes me think of all these successful people at the top, and there are a lot of verses that say, gain the world, lose your soul. like lose your soul, literally. It makes you wonder if there is some sort of event where they give up their soul. The old the devil at the crossroads, right? I mean, this is not a new thing. This has been going on a while. People say, that guy gave up his soul and then he got famous. Right. I don't know. It makes you wonder if it happens.
I think it does. I think that they tell us. I think that we see it in plain sight, and a lot of people just don't want to go there. They kind of laugh it off. And that's partly the media's fault too. They use comedy to kind of laugh off these things and mock them when in reality, they know it's true. And so they're just trying to get you to kind of be like, nah, it's just a conspiracy or whatever. But there's something to it. There has to be. Yeah. I think the best verse that sums it all up is when Satan, like you said, Satan takes Jesus. They're at the top of that mountain and he says, I can give you all this if you fall down and worship me. Period. That's what he wants. He wants worship. And exactly. I think that's why the music industry is attacked so much and it's so relevant, is because there's an aspect of that worship that Satan wants and he's getting from some of these people.
Well, I know that he plays guitar and fiddle because there's at least a few songs about that.
Right. And maybe Georgia.
Yeah, he plays fiddle down in Georgia, and then apparently he plays guitar at the crossroads because he gave some skills to another guy down there.
There's something weird about music in general and what it unlocks. I remember oftentimes just being at festivals and just watching the crowd, and it felt like whoever the singer was, had control over them. Like, do whatever I say, and you will do it. There were moments where I was like, man, this is trippy. Just being side stage and just seeing it all happen and thinking, these people are possessed right now. They're under a trance.
Totally. And we don't even know, that's a whole nother side of it. You're absolutely right. The whole spell casting and the chanting of words, that's huge. I think the whole I can't breathe thing actually was part of a spell casting.
Wow.
The masks and the I can't breathe. I think it was all part of this kind of programming spell, if you will. And I think the chanting part is huge. And I think a lot of times we don't even know what we're singing, and we're kind of singing along to these songs. What the heck are we even singing? I remember being at concerts and just being in a trance myself, and certain songs make you feel a certain way. So you're like, there's got to be something to it,
It's a weird thing. I've experienced this firsthand. We opened up for a Japanese band in Tokyo, in Japan, and the singer
was this Renomes or was it Sherwood?
No, this was Sherwood.
Okay.
And the singer of this, they were called Polysix, and there was 3,000 people at this club in Japan, and the singer came to me. He's like, "Put your fist in the air and yell toys, and just do it." It was like this their word that they yelled at the crowd, and so I walk out on stage. They don't know who we are because we're an American band, and I put my fist in the air and I yelled that word, and 3,000 people did it back to me. I just stepped back from the mic and laughed to myself, what just happened? Yeah. I don't even know what I did. I don't even know what I said. It was this moment. The Japanese are different. Between songs, they're absolutely silent. They don't say a word.
Yeah.
And I remember just stepping back and I laughed to myself, and then they all laughed because there was just this lost in translation moment of what just happened. But I felt the power at that moment, whoa, that's kind of scary because I don't even know what I think it was silly. They were kind of a silly spaz punk band. They weren't. I didn't get that vibe from them. But I remember at that moment going, "Dang, that was an experience," and I'll never forget that moment. Just you got to be careful. You don't know what you're doing sometimes, and I don't think the public knows that they're being part of these. I don't think they showed up and thought, I'm gonna go to a sacrifice tonight. You want to come? Sure, let's go.
Right.
But that's what it seemed like. So anyway, sorry, that was a long-winded story.
I love that story. Well, and you also have to think of backmasking and think of all that stuff that they do, that we've heard about them do in record studios, and backmasking where they play it backwards and it's Hail Satan or whatever. And there's something to it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a thing. You wouldn't hear about witches and casting spells and all sorts of that. It wouldn't be anything if it wasn't something. And so I just feel wow, what are we singing? What are we saying? To your point, what are we chanting?
Mm-hmm.
Do we know what that's playing, what energy that's playing into?
And I think that's interesting, Nate, too, because we had a conversation with Brian Godawa last night, And it was specifically about Moses, and we were talking about the Egyptians and their beliefs, their occult beliefs and incantations and the repetition of words and spells, and then seeing, man, that occult practice continues, and it continues now in a way that's overt, and they don't hide it anymore. Mm-hmm. And so this repetition of words and sounds and frequencies for a said result. And it's like, and if we're not awake, we participate in this, right? It's crazy.
It's so true. And the Bible even warns against repetitious, vain repetitions. You know, Bible always tells us.
Yeah. It's all there.
Yeah.
It's all there.
So, I mean, obviously we talk about creatures on our show. Mm-hmm. That's the fence we kind of give ourselves. A lot of people want us to kind of tackle the topics that you talk about a lot on your channel, but I think that podcasting is very niche. If you get too out of your lane,
we have all the lanes. Nate, we have all the lanes. We just get in. We just choose to stay.
It just gets blurrier and blurrier. Yeah. We try to talk about creatures and view it through the lens of that. But you were saying that there were these dark entities at the concert themselves, and we consider those, you know, the blurriest of the blurry creatures. Like, do you think they are like demons? And do you have the biblical understanding the demons, kind of what we come to on our show, or like most people on our show say that they're spirits of the dead giants, yeah. the Nephilim,
the disembodied spirits, yes.
And some people say, you know, they're higher up entities. They might be spirits of fallen angels. I don't know. It gets really hard to identify. But do you think those entities were there that night and they were kind of possessing either people in the crowd or people performing?
I do. And I'm under the understanding of that as well. I believe they're disembodied spirits. Mm-hmm. There could be even some hierarchy in that. I don't know. I think that's kind of hard for us to tell, but absolutely these things are real. And actually about 4 years ago, I actually dealt with this personally. And so I think it was God's way of kind of showing me and leading me into this kind of supernatural side, for lack of another word. I had to deal with these dark entities in our home. And so when I see these things, you know, I don't write them off because I've been there, I've dealt with it. And I see the power and the blood of Jesus Christ working. And he's given us that power to cast them away. And so when I see them kind of coming on screen at these concerts, I'm like, heck yeah, that's real. Why wouldn't it be? You know, why the heck wouldn't it be? We don't always see them kind of manifest in that way. You can feel them in like a chill or a heaviness, but sometimes they come on screen. I truly believe it. I truly believe that's what it was. At least 2 of those videos look very, very real.
Mm. Well, it's biblical. I mean, we talk about Paul and talk about what is unseen is more real than what's seen. And we talk about, we've done plenty of talk, especially a recent episode with Ryan Pitterson. We talked about the veil and the idea, you know, it's not a new one, biblically speaking, that there's a spiritual realm. And, you know, and we know through science and quantum physics, there's other dimensions, and these are all just semantics. We're talking about the same thing. So, I think it's fascinating that, like, I really do think we're seeing an uptick in all this, whether we talk to some of our guests, like, you know, like a Dark Waters Nate, who is talking about how there's an uptick in all these sightings and things he's never heard of. And then we have, you know, events like this Astrofest, and that continue to show that the veil is thinning, or at least they're more brazen. Yeah. There's less cloak and dagger and more just like, we're here, what are you going to do? It seems like to me.
I think we're going to see more.
I think that a lot of people who are like the naysayers or who get skeptics, there's always a skeptical side of like, oh, they can explain everything away. I mean, everything from the flyers that went out, the flyer promoting the show, you just look at it. You have to Google it. And then you're walking through the mouth, and then you see the flames and the phoenix and the fire, and then people die. You have like 15 things. You have to ask yourself, this isn't just coincidence. No. It's all one message.
You're absolutely right. And it's almost like they have to show you the occult, the dark occult, the Satanists have to show you what they're doing. And it's kind of like revelation of the method, so to speak. And then you willingly partake in it. If you look at it and you see it and you know, and you willingly partake in it, it's almost like a free choice. It's almost like free will, because you're continuing through, even though these signs are right in front of you. To touch on the 8 flames, I forgot to mention this, but 8 is high in the occult as well, because they're really big into gematria and like numbers and stuff like that. But the 8, we've been seeing that a lot in the infinity. The Facebook going into Meta is the 8 and the infinity. And so I've tracked that as well. they've been really pushing out that number. And so it's just interesting to kind of tie that into it as well.
They love, the cult loves numerology, right? Whether it be
totally.
Well, and then God's number 7.
Yeah.
Right. So, do you think that's kind of another mockery? Like, oh, you have your number, I have my number.
Right.
Right.
Right. For sure. Satan's he's just jealous.
So it reminds me of that movie, Luke, with DiCaprio, The Departed.
The Departed, yeah.
Where the whole time you just like, it's so hard to tell.
Oh, I remember that movie. Yes.
Who's
bad? Yeah, it's Matt Damon too, right?
Yes.
And he's actually the bad guy.
Yeah.
It feels like that's where we are in society right now, where it's like you think Kanye's having this Sunday service and Marilyn Manson's coming and he's giving his life to Jesus.
Right.
Is he?
Is he? Well, and I think you can go back to the Bible, because it's like you see these wheat and tares growing up together and you really don't know which is which until they're fully ripened. And the Bible tells us to test every spirit. And so if we're constantly doing that, in the end days that there's going to be people who are deceiving and continuing to deceive, right? So we have to test everyone, because we just don't know. There's going to be people that say they're Christians. And how will we know? How will we know that unless we pray and ask for discernment? And so I get you. I'm there. I'm kind of like, I'm way in the extreme on that level, but I'm just like maybe a little hardened too. So I'm just
gonna make mistakes.
Yeah. I just feel like, these days are going to be tricky, and we just have to keep seeking the Lord, because it's going to be tough to tell. To your point, it'll be tough to tell.
So one thing I know you probably go down the rabbit holes a lot is like the Freemasons and the occult thing. And we've heard even stories about, because we talk about the ancient giants a lot, but we've even heard stories that they have the skulls of they have some of these giant skulls, and they take them to their events.
I've heard that.
You've heard that?
Yes, I've heard that.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Dude, Amy's tracking here.
Like if you kind of dive into the whole Freemasonry stuff, and this is what I found just studying these mystery religions, if you will, is they're all pretty much one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
The package looks different, but the gift is all the same. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so they've got these, I would love to know what these people have underground. They have access to some crazy stuff.
Seriously.
Yeah. And so they're like, I've heard stories about just the drinking out of the skulls and them being like these ancient giant skulls that they're using in these ceremonies and rituals. I don't doubt it. I really don't. I just think that they have a lot more hidden things that none of us even really know about. And I want to know more. All of it. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you feel like some of those people come after you and attack you, try to shut you down, try to get you off on the wrong trail, distract you, throw road flares or spikes in the road, just trying to get you off the right track? Do you feel like you're getting
kind of?
Does that happen to you at all?
Yeah, in the past it did a lot. Like I said, this is my 4th account. I actually have 2 other accounts because I kept making backups after backups.
Yeah.
But again, like God is just like He's honed me in. I'm so thankful. I'm not distracted. And so I know in my knower when I know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just the Lord. But yeah, I see people like kind of trying to throw me off the track. And, I used to get messages like that a lot, but not so much anymore.
And what do you think is social media? It's changing by the hour. It seems like it's kind of aligning with some of the stuff that's coming down the road here. Scrubbing channels like yours. Luke and I joke every once in a while, like we're just gonna wake up one day and all of his stuff's gonna be deleted.
Right.
Then we're just gonna start just writing these things down, Nate, and sending out snail mail. They can't stop us.
Yeah. We're gonna have to go back to the old radio broadcast.
I'm gonna work on your penmanship, pal.
Pirate radio.
Get your ham radios out. Here we go.
That's fun.
But they're deleting people. They're shutting people down, and social media is converging into. It feels like the beast system's running it all.
Yeah, it's funny because it was my account before this one, and I had a pretty good number of people, and then one day I just woke up and it was gone, and I was like. I didn't save anything. Yeah. I was like, oh no. But here's the thing. Not only was it humbling, You know, it's like Paul has that thorn in his side, you know, to keep you humble, keep your pride away. And you just kind of like, you're doing this not for anything, but to shed light on what God wants you to show. But also it shows that there's something to it. Why would they shut you down? Why would they censor you if it's just a fairy tale, or if it's just a joke, or, you know, if it's a conspiracy? And I was like, you know, I just felt like God was like, this is the hidden stuff being revealed. And they've told us for so long that it's a conspiracy, and we're realizing they're not. Everything from like Bigfoot to Nephilim to the giants been real. It's crazy.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
And kind of ancient conspiracies, the fact that they hit all the accounts of these skulls, these giants being dug up from late 1700s to the early 1900s. And then even Christians are skeptical. I mean, highly skeptical. Like, nah, they're all fake. They're all fake. And so we tiptoe around the conspiracy theory route. It's good to talk to you because we don't dive straight into it. We try to stay on track. Otherwise, it's just we can go anywhere.
I know.
But it's good to talk about this because it comes up on our show a lot of times, and we often argue they can make this stuff disappear. They can shut down channels. The Smithsonian can come on the scene. They can take the bones.
Right.
They can take them out to sea and sink them if they want to. They can, and then you have this skeleton. They don't even be brought on guys like Brian Forrester's like, I'm trying to get these Peruvian skulls tested for their DNA, and they won't even test them, and they won't even write a report that these aren't human.
Right.
What are they?
Yeah, that sounds like the mud fossil guy. Have you guys? That was my first dive into mud. Oh, I'm obsessed with that. Everywhere I go, I'm like, mud fossils. What was that? What creature was that? You know?
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
It gets kind of a fantastic.
But then there's some things, Nate. There's some things I can buy into, like ancient tree stumps and stuff that we see in Independence, Missouri, and the Independence Rock, I believe it is, or whatever. You could see it, but I don't know if I'm going. There's the Eye of the Dragon in the Sahara Desert, and he just laid down there. I don't know how that works, but
weird stuff. It just gets your mind going.
It's okay if you like it, Amy. I'm not judging. I'm just saying that made my brain hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
We were trying to, and I was just like,
yeah, no, I know.
I can believe a lot of things here.
He's so smart. That same.
Yeah.
It kind of went over my head, but I was very piqued. My interest was very piqued. I was like,
yeah,
wait a second. So
right?
Yeah, for sure.
No,
for sure.
We often talk about this on the show, and I know you deal with this. Is you have to have an open mind. It can't be too far open. It can't be too far closed. Right. It has to include the Holy Spirit, and it has to be aware of deceptions. And it's a wild dance to figure out what the truth is, because we're so easily deceived. We're so easily brainwashed. We have feelings too, and they warp our brain. I mean, doing this dance to figure out what is true is harder and harder and harder.
Yeah.
And it's like your full-time job. And you go down a lot of rabbit holes. I mean, we stay in the creature zone.
I do.
But how do you stay sane-ish? Yeah.
How do I stay sane? I put myself in my home in Idaho, and it's snowing, and I just no, I just get in the Word. It is. But I love it. I love it. I liken it to like a detective. God has just put this on my heart, and every day I'm just kind of like, okay, what do you want? What are we doing today, God?
Right. Are you a Californian that escaped California like me and Nate?
Yeah, I still live in California. I still live in California, but we bought a place in Idaho.
Oh, good for you.
And so, I got my plan B here. So
yeah, we escaped.
Did you guys?
I got out about 10 years ago. I got to Tennessee. I don't know how long, Nate, you've been.
But hey, I'm telling you guys, I'm in Idaho right now, and it is like snowing. It is so nice.
See,
I love it. I love it.
Man. Slightly jealous.
That's how I stay.
You're in Bigfoot country.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I tell my husband that. I'm like, let's go track Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm. I love that you're into it.
The big guy's out there. He's out there.
And of all your research, is there anything creatures related? Obviously, it's so many rabbit holes. Is there anything that you've come across that fits into our zone that is relevant to Blurry Creatures? Because people send us a lot of stuff, and it makes you wonder what kind of things people are sending you. Yeah,
I think the blurry side of mine, if I can say that, is is the whole reptilian thing. I get people telling me a lot about reptilian stuff, and also just the demonology and demons and spirits. I get a lot of that stuff, which is kind of like, I kind of lean towards, like I said, because I've been through stuff, so I can understand it better. But the reptilian stuff is, I get that a lot. And I don't really know about that.
Right.
Anything's possible, right? But
yeah, we were just talking about fiery, flaming, flying serpents last night. Luke,
we were.
And Moses battled these flying snakes, serpent snakes, and often people describe the seraphim as having some sort of reptilian connection.
There's got to be something to it, right?
And they build serpent mounds and the snake imagery, and the giants are building these things, and there's serpent mounds all over the world.
Right.
We brought on a guy that had one in his backyard.
I saw that. I listened to that one. That was a good one.
There's the snake and the serpent and the reptile imagery. It's nonstop on our show too. It's just not, look at their eyes. They flicker into a snake and then it goes back and you're like,
I know.
That's how wild it gets. People want us to do a show on the reptilians, but we haven't done it yet.
And plus Satan, is a serpent. Like, is there
right?
some...
I mean, the garden, and then you have like all of the Sumerians and Babylonians had the serpent as the creator god. Like, it goes all the way back, all the way back.
There's something to it. So
something weird about it. Plus, they all live under the Denver airport, Nate. I mean,
yeah, right.
Well, did you guys? I know. God, I want to go under there. Did you guys? Did you ever see though there was this whole thing about an underground reptilian tunnels in LA? Have you ever heard about that?
Really?
Well, it doesn't surprise me, having been to LA a few times.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reptiles walking around there.
Thank you. Yeah, but like that was an interesting. I went down that rabbit hole, and there was actually some like historical stuff that they found, like maps, and I mean, who knows if it's can verify, but it's interesting.
The weird thing about it is the caves, the creatures that go down into the earth.
Yeah,
comes up a lot, and then you hear guys like Doug Riggs come on and talk about there's a whole network underground. There's a whole nother America that's underground, but it sounds like the ancients had their underground, whatever they did underground. They had their underground cities, and we're kind of redoing the modern version of it. And it reminds me of Astrofest. They had the ancient sacrificial ceremonies, and then we're doing it in the modern day.
Right.
And it's sort of like you said, there's no new heresies. Same things happening over and over again. Nothing new under the sun. It's just repackaged. It's a concert. Come to the concert.
Right.
Have a good time. But then you end up on Pleasure Island, and you become a chimera. You change. When do you become a willing participant? When are you doing something in an exchange and you don't know? Just because you don't know it's happening doesn't mean you're not there. If you're part of a drive-by shooting and you're in the car with somebody, you go to jail too.
Right.
You're an accomplice, and it feels like sometimes they trick us into being a part of these groups, and then they get you. What are your thoughts about that?
God always gives us free will, free choice, and I think that Satan has used that to deceive us. And so I think those people were actually unknowingly willing participants. And there's spiritual consequences. Unfortunately, it's a fallen world. So it's like naivety you can't use that as an excuse. You have to be aware and engaged and know what you're doing. So those that don't know God are at a disadvantage because they're not using his Holy Spirit for discernment. And you can get into there's repercussions for that. So
Holy Spirit, activate. Let's go.
I mean, the hard part is being a parent, the balance. I mean, we can't all go Amish, So, or we could. I guess we could. That's
You've got pretty good woodworking skills. I mean, you can probably survive pretty long. Plus, I know you grow a good beard. We just have to shave our mustaches off to fit in.
I know.
Big deal.
I want to get those sweet sideburns that they have, though. They got some awesome
suspenders, man. It doesn't sound all that bad.
But that's the extreme side, right? You just live out in the middle of nowhere. Where's the balance? I mean, where do we? We get a lot of flat earthers that like our show. They love the flat Earth. I don't know. I'm like it doesn't get me going. I don't say either way. I just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
But they're absolutely convinced, and those are the topics that always just rattle my cage. Like, I don't know what to do with this. Do we sell it all and live in the woods? Like, maybe Bigfoot's got it right.
Right.
He's doing it right.
Right. Yeah, but he came to town and he lived with the Hendersons for a while.
That's right. He did. He's always looking in our windows like, what are they doing in there? I don't know if that's a question more than just a verbal rant, but
right. No, I mean, I think
I don't know what you
that's,
think about that.
I always say, if we don't teach our kids, the world will. And so like, I think it's great to teach kids. Like I encourage people to teach them symbolism. I encourage them to teach them and test things because, it takes that long to like get sucked up in something like this, like an Astroworld. There was a 10-year-old there.
Yeah. Who's
a 10-year-old? But but here's the thing, you guys, and I have to say this because prior to this concert, Travis Scott had a partnership with McDonald's. I don't know if you guys knew this, but here's how this is how these people work, right? Partnership with McDonald's, doing this, like, I think he had even some sort of hamburger named after him or fry or something like that. And so there was this kind of kid element to it. It was just this, kind of letting them in. Grooming. Thank you. Perfect word. Just like Lil Nas does. He was on Sesame Street. He was going to school singing Old Town Road. And then bam, he's, doing whatever with the devil on stage, And so we have to teach our kids discernment. We have to teach them, like, be wise like a serpent and innocent as a dove, this world is going to get you. It just is.
Well, the child thing is very, sacrifice the children to the gods, the babies, right? It's the youth. It's the young ones.
Yeah.
It's not the old people they're throwing down there. It's the children. It's the babies. It's
the innocent.
Yep.
Not an accident either.
It's true.
And that makes you think about, then you get down the whole, like, that's what we do every day.
Right.
In hospitals as human rights or whatever. Whatever we disguise it as, and then we just got way off the blurry rails, Luke.
We did.
Man, we're going down the side of the mountain now.
We got to go back to blurry here.
I got at least one final question, Amy.
Okay.
Hey, when you traffic and dabble in all this stuff, right, and you become an outlet for the truth, but there's so much darkness. Like, how do you stay grounded and find the light, and the hope and the stuff? Because that's something we deal with as well on our show, right? When you tell the truth, you have to expose the darkness, and there's a lot of it's a lot of downer stuff, and just for a really simple term, right? And so
a lot of people said that after the Doug Riggs episode, I'm like, dude, it's too heavy for me. I can't handle it.
I get that a lot too. Like, how do you, like, I'm just over this. Like, right. I don't even want to, like, I want to bury my head in the sand type of messages,
Mm-hmm.
No more.
I just buy more ammo. That's what.
Thank you.
Me
too.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
More ammo, more guns.
That's exactly.
Yeah. Sound like my husband.
It's not a joke. No, this is not a test either. Yeah.
I know. I'm right there with you guys. But yeah, I mean, it gets dark. It gets heavy. I mean, I feel blessed that I don't feel that blanket of heaviness. You got to remember, like, we're in this world. We are in the world, but not of the world.
Not of the world.
Yeah, right. And so it's like, you got to refresh, you got to step away, you got to have that balance, right? We got to keep our hope and our joy and do the things that we love. Enjoy the snow falling, enjoy researching about Bigfoot or shooting your guns or whatever it is. Like, you got to do that. You got to have that balance.
You got to renew your mind, right? Be transformed by the renew your mind. Exactly.
Be transformed, because this stuff is heavy. But you know what? We're warriors. We're fighters. Like, we don't let it get us down. We just keep going.
Right.
That's
right.
Yeah.
God's team, God squad, baby. Right, Nate?
Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Speak softly and carry a big stick. Right.
That works as well.
What
other idioms can we pull out of here?
That's Bigfoot's motto.
He doesn't
Love
need
it.
a stick. He just tears trees and puts them upside down.
Do you see the symbolism before something happens? Like, do people have these clues? They know, like, if you had any understanding of the way the world actually works, you wouldn't have gone to this event because you can see from day one, like, hey guys, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. Yeah. Is that kind of what you're teaching people, to see the red flags before you get tricked, before you get swindled?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of my page, is just kind of exposing these things, teaching people to be engaged instead of passive observers in what they're doing. Yeah, I mean, be selective about what you bring into your mind and into your spirit, right?
Yeah, I like that. I think that's something that's a practical takeaway, right?
Sure.
Like, you can you can make changes and you can vote with your pocketbook and your time, right? And we can do that. We can choose not to participate, not to watch, not to spend our money on these things that enable or facilitate the darkness. That's good. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Be engaged in your world. Be engaged in what you allow into your homes and your minds. Like we have a choice. We don't have to let this get us down. We're we have that control. We have that free will and that.
There it is. That's that juice, Nate, right there. That's that juice. There it is.
There's the juice right there.
Let's go.
Yeah, drink it.
Drink it up.
I love it.
Oh, this goes down smooth.
It does.
Appreciate it.
This is fun, you guys.
This is real fun.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys reaching out. So
yeah, we always want to get into these topics, and we don't always feel like we can. Thank you for sharing our page to your fans.
Oh,
and
I'm gonna blow you guys up. Let's do it.
Let's go. Well, this is great. No, it's funny how like even these things though, Nate, they do fit in our wheelhouse, right? Everything is connected. Like, we can talk about everything goes back to the garden and to the tree, and then everything goes back after that to the mystery religions, the Tower of Babel, to the fall and to the rise of these occult. These
so
really
true.
It's really the cult of the Watchers, right? It's these demigods in Deuteronomy 32, and it all fits, right? And all we're seeing now is expressions of that same spirit and really the same thread. It's still here, and I think it went underground. But I think what you're saying, Amy, and what we're exposing here is that it went underground for a while, but it never left, and it's not trying to hide anymore.
No,
I think that's a message people need to hear, right?
Yeah. It's cool. I mean, that's what I think is so cool about it is like, it's all in the word.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that was the first lie. Like, you will be like gods. Your eyes will be opened. And look at these people. They're like dressing up like gods at these ceremonies and, these award shows and stuff. They're like, they want to be gods.
Yeah.
There's nothing new. So anyways.
Just like Rob Schneider and Chuck and Larry. He says it's a circle. Everything is a circle. It's a circle. I love that one, Nate. I've used that one a lot, but I like it.
Yeah, you do.
I just think of Rob Schneider, which is going, it's a circle. Everything is a circle.
You guys are so cool. I'm so like, I told my husband, I was like, I'm so kind of geeking out right now. And he's like, good. He loves it.
That's awesome.
It's very supportive.
Fantastic.
So.
Well, thanks, Amy.
We love it. Yeah, thank you. We had no idea like what we were getting ourselves into, and it's kind of just
it's true.
It's just gotten weird and fun, and we're often off the air talking to each other like, what is going on right now? We don't even know.
Wild.
But
I know
people are just hungry. They need truth and they want it.
Yeah, they're looking for truth, and when everything that's shoved into your face is a lie, it's a great platform. Like you're doing an amazing thing with your page, and then we found for whatever reason, podcasting is still it's a platform that allows you to reach people for all intents and purposes. For now, it can't really be regulated.
Yeah,
they can't control. And you know what? This is a bigger message. They can't control all of us.
No.
There's a lot of standing up for a lot of people to do, and I appreciate what you're doing. I think that
we're
on the same squad here.
Yeah,
stand up and for the light, man. For the light and for Jesus, really, at the end of the day. So
I think that's the main thing. Is you've got a lot of truthers out there, but it's 80% truth, and the rest is kind of lies.
Right.
Because you're not using the Bible as your lens, so you're deceived.
Right.
Just are.
It's like Heiser. It's like what Heiser said, Nate. Like Mike Heiser, who's like is the dude. We love Mike.
I like him too.
That was like Nate's like Super Bowl interview when we had him on.
Yeah,
I mean, he talked about going to UFO conferences and basically essentially he would go speak at them because he's like there isn't a more thirsty or ready group for the gospel than people that are already have gotten themselves to ufology. And I think that's kind of what you're saying is like, if you're already have gotten there and you're like, okay, this stuff there's something going on here, then you are a fertile ground for the truth, and the truth always comes back to the gospel and to the Bible and to the things that we know. There's these absolute truths, even though the world tells us there's none. The absolute truths are there, man, and they've been there. Yep.
Yeah, it always goes back, and that's the cool part about this is like, all roads lead to God, like all these rabbit holes, they all go back. And I love what you guys do. And I think your niche is perfect because these are kind of these these like taboo things that not taboo, that's probably the wrong word, but like
fringe
things that everybody's interested in, but nobody really talks about. And so I love it. I'm a total geek about all this stuff. And so I'm thankful for y'all, and I'm thankful for this opportunity to be together. And so I'm really excited. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah. And we're just a couple dumb guys that like to ask questions. That's all, mate, right?
Well, you guys have a great rapport. Like your friendship is good. You play off one another well. So
you just see what happens when we're not on air.
I can only imagine.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're just confused. Like, what's going on right now?
A lot of zingers in the old text messages, Nate.
Just a lot of memes and
a lot of memes.
A lot of memes.
Yep.
I can tell you guys are meme people.
Yeah.
Nate is the meme person. I like to think about him, but Nate's a genius. He just likes to.
I love it.
Nate's a very talented human being.
That's the only way you can communicate with people in this.
It's true.
This day and age.
They speak. It speaks volumes, right? It's kind of like symbolism.
It's kind of like a parable. You want to get real deep? It's kind of like a parable.
Yeah, your modern day parable, right there.
Exactly.
I like
This isn't about this exactly, but it is about this.
Yeah.
If you dig deeper, there's the truth in there, right?
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Anyway, well, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And I'm sure if you get any more blurry things coming at you in the future, let us know.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah.
We can do it again.
Back.
Obviously.
Yeah, circle on back.
Aliens and UFOs and all the other stuff that's coming down.
For sure.
I think that stuff is just
and we haven't talked about dumbs a whole lot, Nate. It's kind of our list to eventually get to. So
yeah.
What's the other one?
I liked the guy you had on.
Was it Doug Riggs?
It's the guy who works with the MK Ultra.
Yeah, that's Doug.
Is that Doug?
Doug. Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff is the stuff I like. That stuff too, because I'm all into the MK Ultra stuff, like the mind control.
Okay.
And when he said he had this girl who went down, under the Caesar's palace, and I was
Doug.
like,
I know, here we go, dude. That's at that moment is like the Roger moment too, when he's like, and then that shows the one about the guy that dug up his stuff in his backyard, and later we're wrapping the episode, and he's like. Nate's like, oh yeah, we forgot to ask you at the beginning what you think about Bigfoot, and he's like, well, I got 3 Bigfoot used to come down to my barn, and we're like, and he's like, and I talked to them, and then there's their names, and you're like, this is lock in because this is not over.
That's where you like fade out and the music comes in.
You're like, no, here we go. This is like,
I
thought we had a lot talking about you find a giant in a serpent mound in your backyard, but now you got the Native American flute out playing, and you named them all, and they bring you gifts, and they braid your horse's hair, and then and you've gone fully down the rabbit hole.
It just gets weird.
Out. Yeah, exactly.
But you guys love that when it gets weird.
Oh yeah.
When it gets weird and blurry, you're like, yes.
Yeah.
Dude, this guy has like a landline. That's all. He's a farmer, and he loves to call Nate. Him and Nate are like best pals now.
Oh, they all call me. They just call me.
They do call you.
I'm just like I'm the blurry counselor.
I only get a few that reach out to me. So.
Oh, that's cool. That's so
I'm doing wrong.
I try not to let him bother Luke.
Yeah, you kind of screen the calls.
We get a few, Nate. Yeah, we get a few that get through, huh? We got Judd.
They do.
There's a couple that, Anyway,
it's just fun.
It just
expands your perspective. You don't.
Yeah.
You start to say more could be true than less because it just gets crazier and crazier and crazier.
I don't know how it is for you too, like in this area, but like. What I found, Nate, and this is what I think some of the things you're getting at is there's like such a cool community of like really good people like that you just I don't think I knew that. Like I didn't know anything get into this, but like there's just like good people that are out shovel in hand working to find the truth. Like they like salt of the earth. There's some wild, crazy people that are like out there that maybe don't fit in that good circle, but there's a lot of like just really. It's been an amazing community thing, I think.
Yeah.
And even though we live in this virtual world, we're talking to you via Zoom, and we talk to everybody like this way. And Nate and I live 40 minutes from each other. We don't get to see each other a whole lot, but like it's just cool. I don't know. These people are just super neat. It's just a really cool experience.
It is.
Yeah.
This whole online thing has been like a real blessing for me. I mean, I have like great friends that online I've never even met them, and they're just like
same.
It's just the coolest, mind-blowing thing. But that's God. That's
right.
What
it is. It's like Judd. Like I see Judd's face about 100 times, Nate. I've never even met him. Not in person.
It's crazy, right? It's crazy, but it's so cool. It's so cool. It is. I'm finding the same, and it's just awesome. It's kind of like a cool adventure,
I think for the last couple of years, it's dawned on me that our battle is not with each other. Our battle is against the literal kingdom of darkness, and
not flesh and blood, right? You're paraphrasing scripture there, pal.
Yeah, but just to put it in a modern day sense of like we often attack each other But then when you find your people, when you realize like we're up against the dark, grab a shovel, a gun, whatever you got, let's go.
Right.
Let's go. We don't have time to mess around and debate theology. We got to go.
Yeah.
It's coming out. It's coming out of the walls.
Just a little bit of time for that.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like going back to your, how do you combat this with darkness? Like, we don't have time to be afraid. There's no fear in this. It's just warrior mentality. You know, like you just trudge on and you just find the good and keep going. Like keep going, keep exposing it. Yes.
For this.
Yeah, you're equipped. You are born in this time for right now. Just keep going.
That's a good word.
I love it. Well, the truth seekers out there, we have that in common for sure. You want to know the truth, and you never know what it's going to cost you. You never know who's going to disown you because of the truth, who's going to turn their back on you. I mean, you're not promised a rosy life. You're not promised riches and fame. You're promised some thorns. You're some walking through the wilderness just to figure out what's true and not true. And I think that God uses that time in your life and those pains and sufferings to help advance the kingdom. You know, those are the people that He can use.
Well, I think the flip side of that, like, is that He promises abundant life in that. So even though it said we'll be hated for our faith and for representing Christ, at the same time He says that I'll show you how to live abundantly. And so I think that's the secret, right? That's the real secret there, is that like abundant life is not found in the promises of what, and this is a full circle, right? This, again, a circle. But the story of like what these people sell out for, like for riches and fame, that's the deception. Like there's nothing more empty than that. And yet in our adversity, in preaching the truth and in trying to look more like Jesus, the abundance of life is found. And that's the crazy juxtaposition of all that is really where the fulfillment and the abundance of life is found, not in the stuff that the world continues to bombard us. And you talk about programming, bombard us to tell us to make us happy. Market at 100 out of 100 minutes, 100 out of 100 times we're marketed at, this will make you happy, this will make you fulfilled. And the reality is none of that will.
So you kind of get untouchable because the world doesn't appeal to you anymore like maybe it used to, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the fully living eyes wide open too.
Yeah.
All this is empty.
Yes. So true. So true.
Solomon figured it out, but he went through. He took it through all, trying everything to the end, and then this is all. None of this matters. Yep.
Well, thanks so much, and
thanks, Amy.
Tell people where they can find you, and follow what you're doing.
Just on Instagram, EyesOnTheRight 4.0, 5.0, 6.0. I could chat with you guys all night, but I'm sure you got things better to do.
Well, we appreciate it. We love it. Yeah. We feel lucky that people care enough about our content to even want to come on our show, let alone are excited about it. So thank you. It's cool.
It was awesome.
Yeah. So cool. Thank you
No problem.
for fitting me into that blurry realm.
Oh, yeah.
You're coming back.
Yeah.
We'll get you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, this is good.
All right.
Let's do it again.
All right, you guys.
All right.
You passed
have a great night.
You passed the very low bar of blurry test.
Low?
No, I'm just kidding. I was just self-deprecating. Just kidding. No, the bar was low, but you were way. You went Kareem Abdul-Jabbar above it.
Okay, cool. I'm totally good with that. I like it.
Awesome.
All right, you guys.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Take care. You guys are great.
Yeah.
Bye.